I'm Julia Fisher. Welcome to this week's edition of The Olive Tree. All these programs are recorded on location in Israel with local believers, Jews, Arabs and Palestinians. And always we seek to find out what God is doing rather than talk about politics. Reconciliation between Jewish and Arab believers has long been a focus on this program. Today we take that a step further. Listen now as Ann Pawson talks to Maala Thomas. Maala and her husband are pastors of a congregation in Netanya, a city located just above Tel Aviv. In a windy beachfront restaurant, Ann asked Maala to share her experience of working in the field of reconciliation and where that has taken them recently.
Oh, I love your question. You're going to have to now listen to what has happened in our lives in the recent years. Of course, we will continue all of our lives to be involved in reconciliation and unity in the body, and it's something that is deep upon our hearts. But I think that in the last years, we've come to a deeper understanding of what reconciliation is and what it is not. And we understand, I think, that reconciliation is not an end in and of itself. So while the initiatives are wonderful and should continue, I think that seeing them lead to another level would be missions. In other words, there is a point to reconciliation and unity, and that is to share the gospel. So that's really where we're at. To be simple, we've been blessed for open doors in many different areas, and we are enjoying very much seeing the Lord guide and lead not just Evan and I personally, but our congregation and members of our congregation in doing both short-term and longer-term missions, and that's something that's really exciting.
So tell me about a mission that you're involved with now.
Well, something that's new to, I don't know actually if we've ever talked about it together, but the mission of Uganda is really on the focal point of our congregation at the moment. This is not something that's happened in a day or even in a year. We were 3 years ago, one of the younger women in the congregation, Miriam, and myself, were invited to be part of a team that went to Uganda at the request of a grassroots organization called BIRD, B-I-R-D, the Bulambuli Initiative for Sustainable Rural Development, in the foothills or the mountain, the lower slopes of the mountain Elgon, which is on the border between Uganda and Kenya. And we were invited there as a part of a small delegation because that organization was crying out for help. They had a vision and have had the same vision for the last 8 or 9 years already, to establish a school and an orphanage for at least 300 orphans. The circumstances there, as I'm sure you're aware, are very difficult. Where BIRD is situated, no electricity, no running water, and a lot of orphans whose parents, either one or both parents, have been lost to AIDS, HIV, and actually still malaria in the area as well. So these orphans are needing a lot of support.
There are many, many needs to fulfill that need attention. But where do you as a congregation start?
Well, we've actually jumped in, boots and all. Let's look at what's happening on the ground in January. Miriam, the same Miriam that I shared about, who went with me 3 years ago in response to a call for help, is going to go as a long-term missionary. She's committed herself initially to 1 year, and she's going to be on the ground helping. She's a trained kindergarten teacher, and she's going to be supporting them in that particular area of her skill set. And congregationally, the members of Beta Saf have really taken this on as a congregational burden for prayer, as a congregational opportunity for giving. And we have been gathering what funds that people are able to support us with to really start that building. So the building project is well underway already. And what's so lovely for us, Anne, is that it's not us that are doing it. We felt so honored to be asked to be supporting something that really is local and grassroots. So it's Ugandan believers and non-believers who are working together to see a vision that they have come true, come to pass in meeting the needs of these orphans. And we are there to be beside them, to support them, to be their back. And so whatever we can do practically, as well as sending Miriam there. Evan and I were there a month ago, and we got stuck in, and we were also part of the cleanup team and the painting team, and the work that we were doing was just the daily work that needs to be done on a building site. And of course, many of our congregants are also wanting to get in on it if it's ever possible for them to be able to come and join us to do the same.
So you hope this is going to be a whole church Beta initiative?
Absolutely, and I think that's healthy for us. I think it's been a very healthy move for us to see something much bigger than ourselves. And for Evan and I, as part of the pastoral team, we've been here in the land for 40 years just about. And I think that we've seen Israeli Messianic congregations go through many different stages. Of course, at the beginning, as we were so new in the land and the body was such a young body, we needed a lot of support. And we've been given that, we've been granted that, and it's now our turn to reach out beyond our borders and support whatever God brings before us to support.
So you're fulfilling the calling of this nation being a blessing to the other nations.
Yes, indeed.
The Jews being a blessing to the nations.
To be a light unto the nations, to see that our dependence is only on God. No amount of strong ideas or bright ideas are going to succeed if God is not in it, but really working alongside, partnering with one another in the things that God puts before us to do. I think we're going to see rich blessing.
You mentioned that you've just come back from a trip to Uganda where you did building work. What was your relationship with the local community like, with the local men, women and children? How were you received?
Well, as I said before, we were going as a response to a call for help by a particular organization, by BIRD, the grassroots organization I mentioned. And so at this point, what it is really relationship building with them, supporting them, seeing how we can bring our skill set to maybe encourage them, maybe challenge them, maybe think together and problem solve some things. But they're the ones that are doing the work. And they're the ones that we are looking to build a relationship with first and foremost, so that then the relationships grow to the larger community as the orphanage and the school are built. So we've become family. That's really what I can say. I'm called Mama Maala by many, and I take that as a badge of honor. And we've been able to really get alongside one another in not just doing the building work, but just talking about life, doing life together. And I think that I'm probably in contact with Alfred, who is the director of BIRD, on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis, when we need to talk about up and coming things. But it's relationship building, it's building community, it's building family connections together between Beta Saf and between BIRD.
The community that you're working with, are they mainly believers?
Yes, I can say that the BIRD initiative came from believers, Christians from the Church of Uganda, and all of the people who are in positions of responsibility and directorship in BIRD are believers in Jesus. In the area, I would say that there is a majority of Christians, but that doesn't necessarily mean people who are committed to a life following Christ on a daily basis. So there are a lot of Muslims as well in the area and a lot of pagans. And I don't use that word lightly, but it is a following of the traditional ideas, and some of those wouldn't measure up with us if we were trying to discern whether they were things of God. They would not be considered things that God would find pleasing, but they are part of their daily lives.
You just mentioned that there were Muslims and people of other faiths in the village. So is there a possibility of outreach by Beta South?
I think that we're a distance from that presently, and really the stage at this point is to see the infrastructure built up. But as that is built up, it's also done relationally. And in the time that Evan and I were there were so many questions. The questions, interestingly enough, were less about our faith, but the fact that we were Mzungu, that we were white people who were coming not just to drive past in a big Hummer or some, to wave at the people as we drove through in comfort and in style, but that we actually would want to come alongside them and work alongside them and honour them for the work that they are doing and to support that rather than coming in as a mission organisation or as a church who was coming to build a church for them and then going to stay at the hotel for the night and making sure that we had Western food. So those kinds of relational things are an outreach. And I think that was very clear for us, is that, first of all, that we were non-Ugandans, interested in coming to be with them, that we did have a personal faith, and that personal faith drove everything we did. That was also something that was new for them, because, of course, if you're a part of a traditional frame of thinking, even as we could be in any of our cultures and countries, it's like you're a Christian because you were born into Christianity. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have asked Jesus to be the Lord of your life. So that was also interesting to them. And then the confusion for them that we talked about Yeshua, Jesus, being our Lord and Messiah, but Evan being Jewish and me not being Jewish. Well, how does that work? So that was another new paradigm for them. So yes, there is opportunity in outreach, but not in the traditional way, certainly not with passing out flyers and having outreach programs, but with doing life together and really being open about that and being willing to have open conversations. And once the school is built and once we have sports field there and we're able to invite the community to come, for sure we can be totally open about who we are. I'm confident of that. But by then we will have already built up a relationship of trust and a relationship of life together. And I think then it will come very naturally.
You've been listening to Ann Pawson in conversation with Maala Thomas. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.